I have always been single. After graduating from university, I went through several jobs, and now I'm working in sales at a local company. When I was younger, I had a lover and even considered getting married. However, after being betrayed by my lover once, I distanced myself from love, and before I realized it, I'm still single at 40. Thankfully, I have many friends and a stable income, so I don't feel any discomfort in my current life. One day at work, I received a call on my cell phone from an unfamiliar number. When I answered instinctively, it was a call from a nearby hospital informing me that my mother had fallen and had been taken there by ambulance. I immediately left work and rushed to the hospital. My family home is located in a place that can't exactly be described as convenient. While I love being surrounded by nature, there are only 2 buses every hour, and the last one is pretty early, so I started living alone when I got a job. Nevertheless, it's only a 30-minute drive to my family home. Whenever I visited my mother, who lives alone, she always greeted me with energy, but this situation was a first. On her way back from work, my mother hurried to catch the bus after shopping, tripped, and fell. When I arrived at the hospital, it seemed her treatment was already over, and I was led to her room. "I've broken a bone. It seems the fracture is in a tricky spot, so I'll have to stay in the hospital for a while. I'm sorry for causing you this trouble." This was the first time I saw my usually energetic mother so downcast. She seemed to hate burdening me. "Don't get downhearted. It's just a temporary hospital stay, right? I'll go home and bring back anything you need." Saying that, I left the hospital and returned to our family home. After preparing the essentials for the hospital stay, I went back to the hospital around 2 hours later. As I was rushing to my mother's room, I heard familiar voices. "Hey, what are we doing about the money for this month?"
"It's fine as usual, no problems."
As I turned the corner of the hallway, I saw, as expected, my brother and his wife talking. The moment our eyes met, my sister-in-law, who seemed startled, began speaking to me. "Aren't you late? Your mother was rushed to the hospital and you're just strolling around?" I've never really liked her. Ever since my brother introduced her as a family member, I've felt looked down upon. She always wears flashy clothes and often mocks me for my modest style. With her inability to value money, she has even pitied me for not owning luxury brand items. To avoid meeting her as much as possible, I chose to live in a town opposite to where my brother lives. I arrived promptly. I just went home to get some necessary items. Hearing that, she looked at me with doubting eyes, asking, "Really?" However, now is not the time to worry about such matters. I asked my brother, "She's going to be in the hospital for a while, you know that, right?" And he responded nonchalantly,
"Seems so. We have 3 kids at our place, so you take care of Mom, okay?"
His tone sounded as if it had nothing to do with him.
"Exactly. We need to get back home and start making dinner."
Jennifer, my sister-in-law, said that and walked away from me. I imagine having children can be challenging in many ways, but can't my brother at least show the will to visit? Moreover, their children are already in middle school and high school. Jennifer always uses their children as an excuse for everything. She acts superior because she has children, and whenever there's something inconvenient, she immediately says it's because she has kids. I never intended to ask anything of them, but still, the way my brother acts doesn't seem fitting for someone addressing his own mother. 2 days have passed since the hospitalization, and when I visited, I saw my mother still looking very downcast. She probably needs to take some time off work, and even moving by herself seems hard. It seems to be a huge burden on her. Now is the time to rest. Don't push yourself. No matter how much I search for comforting words, this is all I can think of. The doctor advised us to have an assessment for care certification. Fortunately, the assessment went smoothly, but due to the stress of the accident and side effects of painkillers, the results were worse than I thought, and my mother became even more dispirited. Still, I have to face reality and consider how to respond. The idea of quitting living alone and moving back home did cross my mind, but considering my work hours, I'd likely spend very little time at home. Plus, there's the worry about what might happen to Mom while I'm at work. I thought of asking my brother James for help, but he simply said he was busy with work and never replied after that. I made up my mind and began to consider using caregiving services. Even though we lived nearby, I initially felt bad about using a service for Mom, but after understanding the specifics of the service, I changed my mind. Plans for utilizing the caregiving service around the day of my mother's discharge were solidified. On the other hand, James never visited the hospital even once. However, considering future matters, I tried to discuss meeting up with him on the day of Mom's discharge. He seemed bothered, but I somehow managed to get him to promise to come to the hospital. But on the day Mom was to be discharged, I waited at the hospital, and James was nowhere to be seen. Out of patience, I called him, and he replied saying he just woke up. I shouldn't have had expectations. I finished the discharge procedures for Mom, and we both got in the car. I told James to come to our family home later. We safely arrived home, and though I wasn't used to it, I assisted Mom and settled her into bed. Just then, James arrived at the house. It seemed his wife Jennifer was with him.
Ugh, I'm exhausted. You don't have any gifts for us? We made the effort to come, so you should at least offer us some cake. Oh, or maybe you could go buy some now.
Holding back the urge to say, "You did bring a gift to celebrate Mom's discharge, right?" I replied, "Please, buy whatever cake you like. I need to talk to James." Jennifer's attitude changed completely.
What? Why? We took the trouble to come here. Shouldn't you be the one preparing things?
I ignored her words and went straight to the point. Without any concern for Mom, I explained to my brother about Mom's current situation and the plans for the future. I'm worried about Mom on my own. What if something happens to her while I'm at work? Before I could continue, my brother interrupted loudly.
Are you suggesting we help her with her care?
I hadn't even thought about asking for such a thing, but now my sister-in-law chimed in too.
No way. We have 3 kids, as we always say.
I get it already. Does she have anything else to say other than that? My sister-in-law was going on in her usual tone, and I wanted to quickly move on with the conversation. But as soon as I tried to speak, my brother raised his voice again.
Don't joke around. Don't rely on us. Isn't caregiving the duty of a single person?
On top of that, my sister-in-law joined in the shouting.
Isn't it obvious? People without children should do the caregiving.
Does she ever think of anything other than children? I hadn't even asked them for help with caregiving in the first place. I stated bluntly, "Don't misunderstand. I've never once thought about asking you for caregiving help. I've already contacted caregiving services and made arrangements. I called you today to report on that." Upon hearing my words, both my brother and his wife began yelling again.
Are you trying to get that money from us?
What? Even though you're single and have money, do you want us, who have children, to pay?
I couldn't remain silent after that comment. Who said that? I understand without being told that having children is challenging. I'm not expecting any help from you. I just called you to inform about Mom's situation and to discuss our future plans together. I unintentionally let my emotions get the better of me and spoke with a firm tone. Despite that, my brother ignored my outburst and said with a laugh,
Did you call us all the way here just to say that? You could have said it over the phone. You might have free time being single, but I have a whole family to support. I can't take time off from work for things like this. Isn't taking care of Mom your responsibility?
Supporting the whole family, huh? It's something to say that with such confidence. I couldn't help but sigh. Fine, I'll handle everything on my own. But won't you two regret it later? At my words, the couple laughed sarcastically.
Regret? Why would we? We should be heading back soon. Don't contact us anymore over this.
Just like that, without even addressing our mother, the couple left. After graduating from university, my brother got a job at a renowned company. He used to value family and had a serious side. But since he started dating his now wife, he seems to have gradually changed. The news of his wife's pregnancy led them to marry, and he seems to have become a completely different person from the brother I once knew. Sometimes Mom says wistfully, "He used to be so much kinder back then." Mom blamed herself for what happened, but my brother is a grown man. I believe she has no responsibility in this matter. He's an adult. He should take responsibility for his own actions. After the two left, my resting mother in another room called out to me. I explained what had happened earlier. Mom looked a bit sad but then decided, "If that's the case, we'll proceed with the method we discussed earlier." She seemed resolute. Since then, I lived at my family home for a while to support my mother's daily life. I got special permission to commute by car. While receiving a caregiving support, I reduced my overtime hours as much as possible. Gradually, my mother's condition started to improve. About half a month after my mother returned from the hospital, the doorbell rang while I was working from home. Mom said, "Consider this part of my rehab," and headed to the door, thinking it was just a delivery. I casually thought it was a parcel delivery, but then I heard voices from the entrance. I headed over. To my surprise, it was my brother's wife.
Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be at work?
"I'm working from home today, but why are you here? Weren't we told not to contact you anymore?"
What's working from home? It's nice your small company allows that. Anyway, I'm not here for you. I just wanted to see your mother. Don't interfere.
Does she not know that one can work from home just because she's a housewife? Probably she's just not interested in other people's jobs. Her only interest seems to be her hobbies, like beauty and fashion. As always, she was wearing flashy clothes today.
Mom, I need this month's amount right away.
As I silently observed them, my brother's wife made an unbelievable request. She was demanding money from my mother. Even in her confusion, my mother replied, "I told you before, since I got injured, I can't work and can't support you any further. I also have caregiving expenses." But it seemed like the brother's wife wasn't listening.
But James said so. He said not to worry because Mom has savings. And what about the future of our kids?
Wait, what is my brother saying? I was infuriated and stepped in between them. "Please stop causing more trouble. You know how much Mom loves her grandchildren, but that doesn't mean you can demand money from her. I'm aware of my brother's situation at work. If finances are tight, why don't you reassess your lifestyle or get a job? Also, please repay the money you borrowed from Mom as soon as possible." In fact, since my father passed away 10 years ago, my brother and his wife have been relying on financial support from my mother. My father was a strict man. My brother has been scared of him since childhood, and it seems that after he passed away, my brother used his children as an excuse to approach our mother for money. My mother, pressured by frequent requests for financial assistance from the couple, made them sign an IOU, confirming it as a loan. She also kept meticulous records. I heard that the money left behind by my father as an inheritance was used for the purchase of my brother's new house. About a year after my father passed away, my brother and his wife suddenly bought a house. I hadn't inquired in detail, but had some idea about it. But I never imagined they had borrowed so much money from my mother. I learned the truth when my mother was hospitalized. While packing for her hospital stay, I overheard the couple discussing the debt. My mother kept saying,
"Thinking of the grandchildren, I feel sorry."
However, when I told her that all of the wife's clothes and belongings were high-end and brand new, it seemed to dawn on her the gravity of the situation. After being discharged from the hospital, my mother told the couple to repay all the borrowed money at once. Despite this, they had the audacity to come and ask for more money without even repaying the old debt. After we managed to send the brother's wife away, my mother called my brother, thinking he might not know about her visit. He replied,
"You must have saved up until now, right? $500 a month? That's not a big amount."
Filled with anger, I asked my mother to hand over the phone to me. "You never visit or discuss caregiving, yet you only ask for money. If you're so strapped for cash, why not sell your house or car? There are surely other solutions."
"You have no idea what you're talking about. The car and house are things I've cherished. I can't just sell them off easily."
"Regardless, I've told you not to contact me, haven't I? Don't contact me from your end either. If you persist, I'm considering getting the police involved." I hung up the phone in anger. After that, my brother called many times, but my mother and I always responded the same way. In the end, for the next 2 months, my mother never gave any money to my brother and his wife. My mother's health improved considerably. And then one day, while I was feeling a bit relieved, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my niece and nephew were standing there. I initially thought my brother and his wife had sent the kids to ask for money, but my high school-aged nephew began speaking anxiously.
"Grandma, are you okay?"
Both the middle school nephew and niece were also worried about my mother. Despite the surprise, I let the 3 of them into the living room to hear their story. What I learned was that they had not been informed at all about my mother's hospitalization or her inability to live as before due to her injury. However, apparently just yesterday, they were suddenly told by their mother, "Since Grandma can't work anymore, no more allowances from now on." Hearing this, the eldest son confronted their parents, learned about the situation for the first time, and the 3 of them took trains and buses to come and visit. Unlike their parents, the 3 of them seemed to have warm, caring hearts. Meeting them after a long time, I had been worried that they might grow up to be like my brother and his wife, but it seems I was wrong. They probably grew up learning from their parents' actions, taking them as negative examples.
"Here, Grandma's favorite sweets. Remember you said you liked them before?"
What the youngest niece handed to my mother was a candy from a store my mother frequently bought from and loved. My mother was so moved that tears formed in her eyes. It seems the eldest son bought it with the money he earned from his part-time job. Hearing this, I felt tears well up in my eyes as well. However, when we heard about the part-time job, my mother and I exchanged glances. My mother had been providing money for the children, and my brother's business was thriving, so they should have had more than enough income for a family of 5. Looking closer at the children, they were dressed in worn-out or ill-fitting clothes, very different from my sister-in-law. The youngest, a girl, was even wearing what clearly looked like hand-me-down clothes meant for a boy. When I asked for more details, it seemed my sister-in-law was constantly out enjoying herself and did neither household chores nor childcare. I immediately called my brother and exclaimed, "What are you thinking? Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a parent?" He seemed very surprised, apparently not expecting the children to be here.
"I gave you money, believing it was for the grandchildren, but you and your wife were the ones spending it. As promised, repay all the debt at once."
My mother's tone was so stern, reminiscent of our late father, that my brother seemed to understand and respond accordingly. To our surprise, my brother and his wife really repaid all the debt. It seems they were constantly told by their children to repay the debt soon. My brother traded in his luxury car for a compact car, and my sister-in-law auctioned off her designer goods. About 10 years have passed since that incident, and my mother has been living without any problems. Now and then, she looks forward to her grandchildren visiting with their own children. Yes, my mother is now a great-grandmother. As for my brother and his wife, they seem to be estranged from their children, unable to meet their own grandchildren, and are reportedly living separately in the same house due to financial disputes. The specifics don't really matter to me. I still live a work-focused life, but now there is someone by my side with whom I might share the rest of my life. It might be time to put an end to my single life soon.